And today we're going to talk to you a little bit about what Komprise does, some use cases, show you a really cool product demo, and give you a really good understanding of our platform. So to get started here, we will, what we're seeing out in the world today is a little bit different than it was 10 years ago. Multi-cloud is now a new normal with our customers and with the ecosystem customers out in the world. There's a big mix of NFS and SMB from the past, and the most recently, a lot of data being created in S3. So unstructured data is growing about 42% per year across the ecosystem out in the world, and folks are trying to figure out what to do with it. A lot of folks have a share of different type of cloud vendors. They have more than one cloud provider, and they're trying to figure out a way to manage that data growth and also manage the data across their cloud ecosystem. Across Komprise's install base, which are hundreds of customers, just a quick quiz for you folks is how much of the data do you think that we see out in the world and Komprise customers is cold, meaning it hasn't had any reads or writes in more than a year, but yet it's sitting on the primary storage, it's being backed up, and it's being replicated to a DR site. So just quick thought on what your thinking might be. How much of the data is cold? Well, the answer is about 76% of the data that Komprise sees is cold, meaning it hasn't been touched in more than a year by any read application or write application. Yet it's still sitting on primary storage. It's still being backed up a number of times, and licenses for backup are being paid for. And then it's also sitting on a DR site as well. So the opportunity here is to help folks build a cloud strategy and demonstrate some cost savings by leveraging Komprise. So across our customers that we see, the big priorities that we're solving for them and why are they buying Komprise and why are they implementing Komprise in their ecosystem is number one is save me money. My data is doubling every 2 to 3 years, but my budgets aren't, so how can you save me money and still let me save that data? Help me with my cloud strategy. So cloud strategies are very key and very important, but they're not very easy. So can you help me with a cloud strategy and help me build one and make it simple so that I don't have to hire an army of people to modify my applications, for example? And then also give me an idea of what data that I can move to the cloud or what data should I move to the cloud. This is another big request that we get in the problem that we're solving. And how do I accelerate? And now that I know what data needs to move to the cloud, and now that I have a cloud strategy, how can I accelerate and manage data between my on-prem and my cloud? And now, how can I control data sprawl and growing costs? And so I have cloud data out there, and I don't know what's there. How can you help me control that? And these are the things that our customers are asking us for that we've helped them with. But to get started, they need to know, first of all, tell me about my data profile before I make decisions. So maybe you're looking down the barrel of a storage refresh. You've got an application that's running slow. You need some all-flash storage for it. You're thinking about what you're doing with your storage. Can you help me make decisions? Can you give me analytics about my data before I make those decisions? And also, once I do that, can you help me with migrations as well? Okay, so these are the kind of things that we're helping customers with. And the way we help them is we've built a platform to help our customers become a data-driven enterprise in the hybrid cloud era. And our platform is what we did is we looked around the world, we looked around at the applications about how folks have been managing their unstructured data, and we built a single platform to take care of all of these use cases. Everything from optimizing the storage by moving the cold data to the cloud transparently, and the end user doesn't even know what happened, to the migration to the cloud or across data centers, Windows to Windows, Unix to Unix, S3 to S3, on-prem to the cloud, and back and forth. Also, leveraging the cloud to create a data copy in the cloud in its native format for low-cost DR, for example. The ability to take data from a lot of different locations and build virtual data lakes. all the while giving access to that data in its native format. So maybe you have Windows data from a number of different platforms, log files, things like that, but you want to keep them, put them in the cloud to save them because they have value, but access them with the same ACLs and attributes with a native application. Some of our key wins and how we've helped some key partners, just a small sample, is helping customers isolate and consolidate Isilon to a new storage platform at PacBio, helping Pfizer with data migration to a new platform and moving to the cloud, help Yale with their storage footprint and archiving, and then a lot of migration work over at Qualcomm, for example. From a key case study or an example of a implementation is some major healthcare provider that we have. One of them is they have a requirement to keep 15 years of data retention. We help them cut the data retention costs by showing them that 80% of that data was cold, and that ended up being archived over to IBM Cause. So we can archive it to any cloud vendor, and there's no disruption whatsoever to the users. And anyway, dropped their costs down considerably and gave them more operational efficiency, and built a cloud strategy for them. And they did not have to change the way they do business or the way their applications work. So let's go into what the product looks like and show you a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's show you a couple quick demonstrations on how Komprise actually does this. So what you're looking at here is the Komprise UI that actually runs in the cloud, and we connect. And what you're looking at here is a picture of an ecosystem with a lot of different types of sources out here, a lot of Windows servers, Unix servers, things like that. And we're very, very simple. When the user installs Komprise, or we help them install it, they simply add a file server over here. And once they add that file server, we start crawling through it and giving them analytics about their data. So the first thing you do is say, tell me a little bit about my data. And you can see here in this environment, across all of those file shares, they have about 2.1 petabytes of data. And the blue shows it hasn't been accessed in between 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, and greater than 3 years. So in this environment, you can see just by quick glancing at it that more than 50% of the data is cold, hasn't been accessed in more than a year. You can also see how much of the data is hot as well. So you can mouse over and see how much of my data has been accessed in the last month or the last 3 months, for example. Excuse me. So it gives you an idea of a little bit of profile of the data. We can also show down here that what is the data growth rate for for all these environments. You can see here about 20% year-on-year growth. You can see how much capacity would be needed over the next 2 to 3 years based on those growth rates. Also, what we're able to do is across that whole ecosystem, give a aggregated view of what is sitting on my storage and how cold is it, what file types and things like that. So what types of files are consuming the biggest amount of capacity by file type, by file size, who is consuming the most amount of space, and how much of their data is cold, the top groups, the top directories, the top shares, and things like that. So a lot of different profile views about the data. And you're looking at an aggregate of all the data in the ecosystem, but you can also drill down and look at specific shares as well. So just click on the shares that the customer would want to look at. So that gives you a view of what's sitting there. Tell me what I've got first, and then now help me save money, help me build a cloud strategy, help me do something with it, build a declarative approach that'll take care of itself. So in this example, we are looking at a medical university here. And the medical university, what we've done is taken their data and broke it into things like X-ray images are on this share here. Home directories would be a couple shares, and then student data might be yet another couple of other different shares as well. So what the user could do then, what you can do is say, hey, for my student data, for example, I want to if my students haven't accessed their data in more than 6 months, they're probably not taking that class any longer, or that class is probably finished. But I want to preserve that for a while, but I just don't want it sitting on my primary storage. I don't want to keep backing it up. I want to move it. I want to move that cold data to the cloud and save 10x my storage costs, for example, or maybe 15x my storage costs. So you just simply say, I want to modify the student data and say, if the files haven't been accessed in more than 6 months, which happens to be about 625 terabytes of data, move that over to an archive bucket in the cloud, for example. You can also say, I also want to keep a copy of everything in a offsite location for maybe ransomware protection, or just an offsite copy for analytics, or to do anything I want to do with it. So you can say, I want to take a copy of all that data and also put it in the cloud somewhere and put that into an S3 cloud offsite there. So then what's going to happen there is we're going to, and oh, by the way, if the student hasn't accessed their data in more than 1 year, I want to basically delete that data, because if they haven't accessed their data in a year, they're not a student, the class is finished, they've had a chance to back it up already, just delete it and clean it up. And so what we do is you can set this to a year here, and then what happens is those files will get moved to a hidden folder. It's called Komprise trash. And so then now this will kick on. All of these activities will occur. All those files will get moved, tiered off, copied off, cleaned off. And then what happens is we after that's finished, after you activate that plan, you can activate it and test it, or activate it. And after you activate that plan, we will kick on and we'll finish it, and we'll kick on and run it again. So it's a very top-down declarative programming paradigm where you set it once and you don't have to worry about it again. It's not like an imperative plan where you have to go and repeat the steps every month or every 6 months, or ask users to do anything. So that's a very quick example of what we can do there. So that just built a cloud strategy. It also built a hierarchical storage management strategy. It also built like an offsite DR strategy. And at the same time, as I was doing that, you can see how much cold data would be tiered off. If you would have noticed over here, you would see these numbers changing as well. And what that means is how much is that going to save me to do that, okay? So, and the way that's calculated is there's a cost model that's built into our platform that you as a customer can insert the costs of what it costs you for your primary storage. What we see, if we reset this to default model here, you'll see primary storage is running about $700 a terabyte per year. And then there's backup hardware and backup software licenses as well. So what does it cost you to maintain that storage for a year? You can modify those numbers as you see fit. Maybe you don't back it up, change that to just $1, for example. Maybe you don't have any backup software licenses, change that to $1, for example. So that would be the cost to store that data for a year. And if you move it to a cloud target, how much are you moving? How much is it costing for a terabyte per year for that? And then that's going to be considerably less. We see anywhere from 7 times to 15 times reduction in cost, depending on where it's coming from and where it's going to. And as soon as you hit the save button here, these numbers are recalculated, and it shows how much that's going to save over a 3-year period. And then down here, now that we're actually doing something with the data, you'll see that what's going to happen is the cold data is going to get moved off. It's going to drop your storage footprint, and then that's going to grow over time. Okay, so that shows you a little bit about the do something with my data, build a cloud strategy, save me money. We also have a really strong, robust data migration engine as well. So if you want to do a migration from one platform to another platform, you just select your Windows or Unix share here, and when you do that, you select the source, select the target, and hit apply. And then you have then what happens is a migration job kicks off. And we are seeing about 25, 26, 27 times better performance on migration than the likes of like Robocopy or rsync, for example. So the job that might take you 4 weeks to migrate data with Robocopy or rsync or one of those other migration tools, we can get done in a day. So That's with Unix. And with the Windows data, we're seeing about 7 times performance improvement. And the way we do that is it's really cool. We can go into that in a later date, but what we're doing is we're really breaking down the migration into multiple parts, and we're also doing a lot of protocol level optimization. We're able to do that across our Komprise grid of software that runs on-prem, and that grid is a scale-out approach. All 3 of our founders have PhDs in scale-out computing, so we're pretty good at building a scale-out approach and a grid approach to solving problems and scaling. We have another use case as deep analytics. We can show you data about your data that you don't know about. For example, we have one customer who had hundreds and thousands of VMs that were sitting out there. And what you can do is, for example, you can say, how many VMs do I have across my whole ecosystem? You just simply go into the deep analytics tab and say, I want to search for all file types of virtual machine, for example, and hit run. And then you can see across those millions of files, there's about 800,000 VMs, of which you can see, a lot of them haven't been turned on in 3 years, for example. A lot of them haven't been turned on in 2 years. Now you can do something with that data. You can see who has those VMs, where are they located, what shares have them, what users have them, and things like that. A lot of different types of analytics and what if statements can be done here. I want to see all my cold data, all my engineering data, all data tagged with project X, and you can create your own queries and save those queries and things like that. So very, very, very handy thing to do this. You can say, I want to see all my data across all my ecosystem where the user doesn't exist in an Active Directory anymore. So, and things like that hasn't been modified, and do something with that. So a lot of different types of things you can do with it. Another thing Komprise gives you is, we showed you the ability to move data and copy data to the cloud. But what about when the data gets into the cloud? What do you do with it? When it's in an object store somewhere else or on-prem, what can you do with it? We also have the ability to do similar things with that kind of data. Things like be able to look at different types of data stores and add your data stores, and then go and look at those data stores in a way that you may have not been able to see them before. For example, you see here that these are a bunch of S3 data in different types of classes of storage. This one happens to be AWS, and you can do the same kind of things with that data, even though it's in S3 buckets that I showed you with the data that's sitting on Windows or Unix, for example. You see we have 309 million objects out there. How many of those out of that 309 million objects are a VM file type, for example? So there's only 324 VMs out there for this query. We also do a lot of integration with cost savings as well. You can go and say, I want to build a plan that takes data that hasn't been accessed and move it into different classes of storage, for example. So you can say, for example, for AWS, you can see if the files haven't been accessed in more than a year, move it to IA. If it hasn't been accessed in 2 years, move that to Glacier. If it hasn't been accessed in 3 years, move that over to Deep Glacier, for example. And as you're walking through this, what happens is we're showing the cost savings from that service provider based on the attributes and the permissions that you use to log in to that service provider. And we'll show you if you didn't have a plan, or if you did have a plan, what the cost savings would be down here as well. So when we're doing all this work, by the way, like I said earlier, we're making it transparent to the user. And when we do the archiving of those files, what it looks like to the user and to the application is completely transparent. And what it looks like under the covers is like this. You can see there's a lot of different types of files in this directory. Some of them are consuming zero space, and those are the ones that have been tiered over to an S3 cloud target, and they're consuming zero space, but yet the user can still access it, the application can still access it, just like they would have yesterday. And what we're doing is we're not loading any software on the storage, no software on the servers, no software on the clients. We're using industry standard Windows constructs and industry standard Unix constructs called symbolic links under Unix and symlink under Windows. So if you look under the covers here, what this is really doing is it's pointing to a shortcut, and so that's how that's being accessed. So that's completely transparent, and it really truly is the easy button there. So let's go back over to the so that kind of wraps it up with the product demo. So I showed you all of these things here. I showed you the analyze the data before doing something with it, and then archiving with no disruption to the user. Be able to copy data to the cloud, the migration jobs that we can do, S3 to S3, NAS to NAS, and be able to build virtual data lakes. I also kind of reviewed with you one of our very key applications that and use cases is migration. Migration is kind of the first conversation with a lot of projects, because you got to do something, move to a different storage platform or do something with your data. Migration is usually where you start the conversation, and then you start thinking about what else can I do along with my migration. So again, our migration is a pretty robust migration. It's very fast, it's very simple, very enterprise class. So direct data access, what that means is I mentioned that earlier, is even though we move data from the primary site into cloud targets, you can still access that data from any tier. It doesn't have to be rehydrated. You can go to where it's located. You can mount those volumes, even though they're in a cloud target and it's in its native format. Okay. So what about my existing cloud data? I showed you a little bit earlier with that demo, the ability to have visibility across all the clouds, whether they're on-prem or public clouds, and be able to migrate and move data back and forth from them. The ability to forecast cost savings and view all of that from a single pane of glass. This is an example of a Northwestern University who had they had zero visibility into their central pool of unstructured data. What we were able to do is go in there and reduce their storage costs significantly by creating some custom archiving plans. Actually, they use Komprise. We're not a service bureau. We help install the software, but the customer runs the application. And they actually moved their cold data from Isilon to ECS and AWS. And again, zero disruption to the users, zero disruption to the students, the faculty, and things like that. So key questions that you might ask yourself is, how are you classifying your unstructured data? What is your plan for the onslaught of the data growth, and how have you handled migrations in the past, and what type of pain have you experienced? And then from a cloud strategy is, what's the strategy to get your data to the cloud without rewriting your applications and your processes? And once it's there, what can you do with it? How are you going to manage those clouds, whether they be on-prem or public, for example? We are very, very unique. Like I said, we purposely built all these use cases into a single platform. We're the only company that does that. And we have a lot of patents on our approach. Everything from the analytics first, we always believe in analytics first, and then basically move it smartly, and then take control of your data. And that's kind of what we're all about, and make it simple. We do have a certification class that we invite existing customers to, or even people who are thinking about buying Komprise or deploying Komprise. It's a certification class. It's one day. I'm sorry, 6 hours. It's 2 different 3-hour sessions, and this class really covers 3 major goals. One is, what is the architecture of Komprise? What's it look like? How does it work under the covers and things like that? And how is it designed? Number 2 is, how do you get it deployed and working? And then once it's deployed and working, how do you run it? How do you do the things that I just showed you to do? And those are the three major objectives, and we have labs and hands-on and all that. And we are not charging for this course. When we were doing it instructor-led in person, we had a fee for it. It was $825 for the course, but we do not charge for it for obvious reasons. Now we want, it's COVID time, so we want to help people out on this one. So that's what I have for Komprise. Thank you for listening. And Alex, that's all I have. If there's no questions, I'll pass it